And for us, United Nations has been the most important multilateral vehicle to exist in a peaceful world. Having been part or involuntarily become part of the Second World War, we look for a new future. And the founding of the United Nations in San Francisco, we were there, and the first Secretary General of the United Nations was a Norwegian, Trygve Lie. You've had another Scandinavian Nordic one, Dag Hammarskjöld, in the 1950s. So I think not only Norway, but the 5 Nordic countries, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, Norway and Iceland, is a group of countries that consistently have been staunch supporters of the United Nations, not only because we think it's a good thing for the UN and the world, it's a good thing for us too. And sometimes action speaks as loud as words. If you look at the sheer facts, look at the budgets of the United Nations, you will see some interesting statistics over time. I can only speak for Norway, but as of today, as I speak, we are the 5th largest voluntary contributor to the United Nations, $1.2 billion US.
Wow.
I have in front of me a list of 29 US agencies. Each country is meant to support the UN agencies by a mandatory share, and there's a voluntary share. We normally surpass that by 40 to 50%. And in certain cases, we are the biggest. I'm not here to really brag about that, but it's a commitment and something we really believe in. Now, I was fortunate to grow up with this kind of sentiment. I became a member of the United Nations Association at the age of 15. And later on, I was lucky to win a scholarship to come to the United States. I came to the state of Minnesota, a little north of here, same time zone, so it's not that far away. A wonderful college called Macalester College in St. Paul. How many have heard about Macalester College? Raise your hand. I count 3, 4. My wife and myself, 5. First liberal arts college in the United States to fly the UN flag on campus every day.
Wow.
And there are a few fantastically well-known, worldwide known graduates from Macalester, besides my wife Sonia and myself. It's Kofi Annan himself, graduate of Macalester in 1963. I later on wrote my PhD dissertation about the impact of UN in nations shaping their domestic and foreign policies. I believe it has an impact over time. It's hard to measure in real terms, but it's there. And the UN needs more support now than ever before. It is not something that should be taken for granted. And you look at the role of the United Nations in terms of peace forces, UN peace forces, it should never ever be underestimated. And you see it today in Africa, you see it elsewhere, it's there to be. We tried to do something concrete along the lines of being an oil state. When I grew up, we didn't know what oil was. We'd heard about Texas, they had oil. We didn't know about it. In 1969, Phillips Petroleum discovered our oil in the North Sea. We are today the 3rd largest exporter of oil and gas in the world, 5 billion people. Now, that's a tall order. It's a tall order to get rich overnight, and we try not to let it go to our head. Today we have the world's largest sovereign fund. It's $910 billion. Governor Perry said he had 9 for the rainy day fund. And he wanted to come over and see how we did it. Now we do something else. And now I'm talking back to the UN sort of setting. We have a large program that we call Oil for Development. What is that about? It's really trying to convey the lessons of a small North European country that actually was quite poor, how we handle our wealth. And we deal with our friends in Nigeria, in Angola, and other developing countries also having that tall order. And there's something about international solidarity in doing that. Being in Houston is just wonderful. We have a good friend, as you do, Dr. Kleinberg at Rice University, portraying the demography of Houston being a mirror image of America 16, 17 years from now. In many ways, I feel Houston is a mirror image of the world in 10, 15 years from now. So being here is quite educational. One last thing, that I think that being a consul general here is really rewarding. We work with all the universities here on science, higher education collaboration, including the University of Houston. Very grateful. And we extend that in many ways. It's not only oil and gas, it's health, medicine. And one area that touches on this evening. At Rice University, you have a wonderful think tank, an institute called Baker Institute. It's a great, great think tank. The director, founding director, Ambassador Dirjan, I've had a good dialogue with him, and I had my Minister of Foreign Affairs meet him about 14 months ago. And a few months later, I had Norway's Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs and Defense. Our Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs and Defense came to Houston. That's a statement of interest in Houston. Half the cabinet has been here. Back to Baker Institute. We had a great conversation there with our foreign minister on the Middle East. Palestine, the big problems, Israel, Syria. So what we've done, because they hit it off, the foreign minister, Ambassador Dirjan spent a whole week in Norway in August. And we forged a partnership between Norway, our foreign ministry, our think tanks, and Baker Institute with money, to really look what can we do together, trying to help what's going on in the Middle East. So that is another part of the nice portfolio of being a representative from Norway in Houston. It's just wonderful to be here. Thank you very much for convening.